Wait,
and we're live. Hello and welcome to the Web Warriors Spoiler Spider-Man Spoilercast.
Did we tweet this out?
Yeah. Oh wait, did we?
Nope.
No, we didn't.
Hey, hello everybody that's not watching us right now. Give us a sec.
Brandon's gonna tweet it out now. I mean, anybody who subscribed to us, it popped
I'm
up.
gonna tweet out too, by the way.
Well, that's good to know.
Thank you guys for being professional. Crossfire's live now.
What the fuck, guys? We got to step our game up.
There's
97 people on there, and there's 516 watching.
This is going exactly how I thought it would.
bad.
No, great.
First and foremost, before we start talking, Spider-Man himself will be here or is here.
Damn right.
And he takes umbrage with anybody who talks spoilers about his game. So let's just tell everyone. I dropped my phone.
Or who likes Tom Hardy as Venom.
Well, listen to Digital Hoarders to figure that out.
Yeah, no, that was Dan, not Spider-Man. Evan, God damn it! We are going to be spoiling the hell out of Spider-Man, the PS4 video game, not any of the other Spider-Man games, though. Spoiling the hell out of the Spider-Man cartoon maker on my Packard Bell.
So
when the ending came to friend or foe, I realized
was I the friend or the foe?
So yes, if you haven't finished Spider-Man for PS4, turn the fucking show off.
Or just watch, because this is the best place to be.
When you're 20 years old, you're living life on the edge, aren't you?
Yep. Fighting crime, slinging webs.
Yeah. So who here has finished Spider-Man, and what grade do you give it? I want to go around. So just like top.
It'd be kind of weird if everybody's like, "No, I'm almost."
Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Really bad.
Off the top of your head, real quick. Don't think about it too hard. Brian Marquez. By the way, we're not introing anybody.
You can intro yourself when we throw.
Yeah, here we go. Brian, tell people who you are and what you would rate Spider-Man.
You have 4 seconds. Go.
Oh God.
Time's up. Time's up.
Much pressure.
I'm known as the one-armed wonder because I have 1.5 technically arms, but go by one-armed wonder.
That's true.
I work at Adult Swim Games. I'm on the production team. I do cool stuff. But we're here to talk about Spider-Man, which I give a 9.5 if we're rating it out of 10.
That's a good score.
That is a good score.
So next, Nick, who's next in the lineup? All right, Spider Dan.
yeah.
Spider Dan.
What's your name and what would you give Spider-Man?
My name is Schmeeder Schmarker.
This is a bad bit.
Excellent.
Obviously, it's a 10 out of 10.
Nailed it.
I mean, what the hell are you even asking me that question for?
You think he's going to tell you his name? Come on now.
All right.
Get the hell out of here.
Evan.
Wait, what's he giving it?
Sir.
I said 10.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to my own show.
Jesus.
Evan, go.
Gross. I don't know. It's 2 out of 10 for me. No, I'm kidding. 10 easily. My personal pick for Game of the Year. I did a review on it on my channel. 2 reviews. One with spoilers, one without spoilers. It's everything I could have asked for in a Spider-Man game, and in my opinion, it is the pinnacle definition of the greatest superhero game of all time.
Just saying that because you're in it.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, probably twice, by the way, but yeah.
Oh, whoa.
No, but other than that, just the passion that Insomniac and Marvel put into it, you can feel it when playing, and that's a huge testament to everyone who has worked on this game. So I would say 10 out of 10.
That was way over
You had
4 seconds.
4 seconds.
We said seconds.
2
minutes.
Once I start going,
You never said your name, so.
Yeah, I think people know me, but yeah, Schmeeder Smart.
Damn, dude, over here. That's a guy of normal age. Evan Falarka.
Nicholas Downey. Who are you and what do you give Spider-Man?
I'm the editor for the Inner Circle Games Network, and I gave Spider-Man an 8.8 out of 10, which is the second score I gave out this year.
All right. I can't. I'm tweeting the show link out right now, so I'm going to need Brandon to mute Nicholas.
Okay. You said kick him off the show. Done and done. All right, Alex, you're up.
Hi, I'm Alex Derrickson. I host the PlayStation Forecast, available on youtube.com/PressXToAlex and podcast services around the globe. And I give Spider-Man on PS4 like a 9.2, like an A-.
He's way better than us.
So
He's
much
way better than us.
Not even
Alex,
close.
You want to be on Digital Hoarders? There's an opening.
the first time I heard Alex talk, I think the first time I actually heard him was on Braw's show.
Yes.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It was
But,
the 11-hour show.
one of the 11-hour shows, and it was a short show. Alex started talking, and I went out to my closet. I found my microphone, and I threw it in the garbage because I realized that Alex sounds way more professional than I've ever sounded in my life.
Made love to his fiance because your voice just does something to Alden. I don't know if you can see him right now. He's quivering a little bit.
Puts a switch.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's sweat inducing. I understand. You know.
I'm sweating, but it's warm in this house.
Yes, it's true.
Brandon, who are you?
What
do you give Spider-Man?
I'm not important, and I would say I'm gonna say 9.5. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 10 is just because sometimes your side missions could get a little tedious. Which I get it, it's an open world game, but if I'm going to say a perfect game, then I don't want at any point for anything to feel a little tedious. So, Alden, who are you? What do you give it?
My name's Alden.
Hi, Alden.
Oh
man, we should have done that.
I work for.
Hi, Alden.
I don't know, somebody really important. I work for Bill Gates, and thank you. And I give Spider-Man personally, 10 out of 10. Like, it was so perfect to me, but professionally, I give it a 9.7. Because for the same reasons you were saying, going for the platinum, playing the actual game
agreed
all
yes
the way,
yes,
and only playing the side stuff that I wanted to play, 10 out of 10. Once I started to get the platinum, it started to become a little tedious to sit on a roof and wait for guys to start kidnapping somebody. Then it started to become a little tedious. That and some of the research stations bugged me. I liked the research station to a point, but there were a few of them that were just kind of felt like they were thrown together. Like, I don't know, we need 12 research stations, so let's have one where you fall through clouds until Peter coughs and swings back up to the top.
Well, there was that one where you get to it and Harry's like, you know what, you don't have to do this. I'm like, sweet. That was you're still gonna make me do this. Damn it.
I just finished the one like 5 minutes ago where you're like dispersing algae in the river. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
this is a Spider-Man thing?
That river.
Like but there were also the ones too that were like, hey, guess what? You can't swing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh god, I have relied so much on this for so long.
The one I think I died the most on, I think it was a research station, was the one where you had to keep aligning the lightning satellites with the lightning strike.
That's my favorite one.
I just kept. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, those ones where you had to do things that took away one of your powers were the weirdest to me, because Peter would always say in the middle of it, like, man, it was so much more fun when I could swing on the...
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
I know, it was really awesome.
We are on the same page there, my friend.
You are Spider-Man.
How do you guys feel about this version of Peter Parker?
You had to throw it to an individual person.
Oh, I got to give it to somebody. Let me go with Nick. Nah, that was a bad idea because he's going to say it sucked. Nick.
With his 8.
What? Okay, I get I'm overly critical, but honestly, like, the only thing that I asked before Insomniac Games released this game was, I was like, please get Peter Parker right. Please get Peter Parker right. And honestly, this is like the definitive Peter Parker to me. They nailed the quips while he's Spider-Man. Like, the banter's great. Like, during that whole fight with Rhino where you're like, hey, Rhino, look, poachers. I lost my shit for like 5 minutes for no reason. Like, it was great. And like the interactions with Mary Jane are like funny but awkward. That awkwardness is really there, and to like try and juggle all the things it was very well done. It was one of my favorite parts of the game, was some of the Peter Parker sections, actually.
I don't know if I should call you Spider-Man or not, but Spider-Man, what did you feel about Peter Parker?
He's the best.
Yeah.
This is gonna be so confusing for me.
It's gonna be very awkward.
He was great, man. It was actually, like Nick said, it was basically the definitive Peter Parker. It was the best. He's the best.
You really like him, huh?
Wow, I really do.
Well put.
He's really fucking hot too.
A Stark. I like what you're doing.
Damn right.
You're trying to be a character that is
I'm about to
very
die
much
with this fucking mask on. I'm just gonna
very opposite.
This Spider-Man is saucy.
You're very opposite of the very professional Alex.
Yeah.
So I like that you're trying to stand out.
We're the yin and yang.
That's right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Drink some more Coke through your mask.
Brian, how do you feel about Peter Parker?
I think this is by far the best iteration of Peter Parker that we've ever had, aside from the comics. I think they did a great job with him. In all those little moments that you got to play with him in the game, you actually, like, they say that this game makes you feel like Spider-Man. Well, I actually also felt like Peter Parker. Like, I felt like the character, especially at the end of the game, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But
yeah. No spoilers.
None of us beat it yet.
No spoilers.
I think they nailed the character for sure.
Yeah.
Brandon, how did you feel about Peter Parker? Well, I'm going to the other guys too. I just realized that if I keep doing it this way, Brandon and I are always going to be last. And I feel like then we're trying to get the last word. Yeah.
It's fun.
Peter Parker.
Good.
Go.
Great guy. No, I kind of just echo what Brian said. It just felt right. Like at no point, I get the slight argument of like when sometimes it would switch over to MJ or whatever, it would kind of slow the game down a little bit, but it never really bothered me. Like it's, I think you said this last week, like at first you're like, I really just want to keep swinging around, but getting to play as Peter, yeah, some of the like the patterns and the fucking like circuit puzzles and shit. All right, whatever. But
talk shit about the circuit puzzles.
I'm sorry.
The best part,
the circuit puzzles reminded me of a video game that nobody played, which was the Saw video game. Which, believe it or not,
oh my god,
the video game?
I remember that.
I enjoyed that game a lot, but you was a ton of those kind of circuit puzzles you did in that game.
Sorry, there's no fucking jaw trap that can slam.
Yes, as am I, but you know we're gonna move on from that. That's why I got a 9.5.
Jaw Trap's my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Yes, fuck
Right.
yes. No, but there was 2 Saw video games, believe it or not.
Yes, there were.
Yes, I actually enjoyed them. I think I'm the only one that bought them, but I had fun with them.
Actually, I bought them, and I think I 100% them on Xbox.
There you go, my man.
They were easy 100%, but that was back before I was into doing those kinds of things.
So fun. I just had fun with them. But welcome to the Saw spoiler cast.
Saw cast.
Well, that's really the best version of Jigsaw.
Really.
Definitely the best I've ever seen. It's better than the Dead by Daylight version. So.
The best arc in this game story was with Jigsaw.
Well, I mean, Saw. Not. Hold on. Go tangentially back.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to be a guest on Alex's show where we're just going to talk about Saw.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
dude. Saw was like the best game where you got to play as Danny Glover. Like, I don't know if you got to do it in Predator Concrete Jungle, but for sure, Saw was the best.
It wasn't in Angels in the Outfield, so yeah.
I really felt like Danny Glover in this moment.
Dude, especially from like the third, as a third-person Danny Glover simulator, Saw was great.
Everybody name a Danny Glover movie. Go.
Oh, Angels in the Outfield was
I
already
just said that. Yep.
I don't know any other ones.
Shit, was he in Mighty Joe Young?
We'll say he was. Why not?
All right.
All those original live-action family Disney movies. Alex, what do you think of Peter Parker?
Oh my God! Right. So that's right. It's a Spider-Man show.
That's right.
It's awesome because, like, the thing that I think that attracts so many of us to Peter Parker on like that, like sort of like meta level, right, is the fact that he is this 15-year-old nobody. He's Batman without the money. He's just this. He's this dork. He's kind of this chud that just happens by just sheer luck is picked by a spider that gets these powers, and when he puts on the mask, he gets to be who he wishes he was. He is the quippy guy. He's the this physical, speedy, agile juggernaut. And Yuri Lowenthal captured so much of that so well that you remembered not so much like what makes Spider-Man great, but what makes Peter Parker such an endearing character.
God,
just
so
nailed.
much better than us.
Better than us.
So much better.
You do.
You guys need to listen to his show.
Yeah.
It's a PlayStation forecast every 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday.
He is better than us. I can't even tell people what time our show's on our show. I'm like, we're live at 7:04. I don't know. What are we doing?
What time is it right now? We're live.
Evan.
Oh, that's right. Yes, sir.
Peter Parker.
Got it. Me, everything that the writers have done from Ben Arthman, John Paquette, and Christos Gage absolutely understand Spider-Man. They nail the relatability, the vulnerability, like Brian and Tara said multiple times, that perfectly encapsulates why people love Spider-Man so much, and mainly Peter Parker. And I love how you can get this distinction between the two. Like, Spider-Man's really, really confident, really, really quippy when fighting bad guys. And then Peter, he's more endearing and caring and, a little bit more sensitive when it comes to talking to MJ and even Aunt May. and this great, connectivity that you get with Yuri as Peter, and also the face model that they got, John Bumniak. He's a great guy in real life, and that they perfectly capture that perfect look for Peter, along with his voice, with Yuri's performance, sells it so well, and himself just being, with that whole mission, like you get evicted, and then you're on the street, and even Peter's like, I have nowhere to stay, and then he's talking to Aunt May, and these connections that you get with all these characters and these story beats perfectly shows every bit of why Peter's such a great guy, and while he'll continue to do the right thing, and while he'll even give up living in his own house just to try and make the city safe and make the world a better place, which is why I love him so much as a character and why he's my favorite superhero. And Insomniac did a great job.
Speaking of that part that made me laugh, everybody loves Aunt May, R.I.P. But she really couldn't let me sleep on her couch. Like I had to sleep in her office on that. She didn't have a place at her house for me to crash. Like kind of fucked up, Aunt May. Like I really don't want to sleep on your tiny little futon in your office. Like
it did seem weird, but it was very
a little like Aunt May. Come on now.
For the story. So I agree. I echo what most of you guys have said, except for Nick.
Fight me, Alden. Fight me.
This version of Peter Parker is probably the best one, and that's as a guy who's 35 and has spent my entire life immersing myself with every version of Peter Parker along the way. They did everything so right, and because it was a video game that you were playing as, they did something that nothing else has ever captured that perfectly encapsulates Peter Parker, and they made you feel overwhelmed. This is a guy who is just so unable to do everything that he wants to do. He doesn't feel like he wants to save the world. He feels like he has to save every single person that he sees that needs help. And that really came across in the performance. And I think that's when it hit me like, holy shit, like nobody has ever done this before. As I'm feeling anxiety when you're swinging to the bomb thing, I don't remember what it was, but you're trying to save the town hall, but at the same time, MJ's calling you and Miles are calling you from the homeless shelter, and at the same time, you want to get both done so bad, and you can hear Peter Parker wanting to get both done so bad, and then you get to the people who need help, and all of a sudden, Scorpion and fucking everybody shows up, and you're just like, I can't do this right now. Why? Can you guys please just back off for a little bit?
Rain check.
And it was just such a very, holy shit, this is what it's like to be Peter Parker. This is like how it feels. As a guy with anxiety and who struggled with these problems in the past and trying to do too much, it all hit me that this is why I love Peter Parker. And I didn't even realize that. Like, we all get that he has so many problems and he's so easy to relate to because he's trying to do so much. But getting in that position and feeling it was just a brand new experience. And I can't believe they did that so well. And I can't believe it's never been done before now. Sorry.
You can't go silent. You're the host.
I know. I can't be the last one to talk. So on that topic, Mary Jane, the stealth missions, your relationship with her, how she acted. Evan, you go first.
Of course. Of course. MJ in this game, and why not? I'm ready for this. This is what I've been waiting for this whole time. So in the comics, I know a lot of people are going to be upset with this version where she is a reporter for the Daily Bugle, and the big comparison is that, she's just Lois Lane. And even Brian Intar said himself, like, he didn't really think of that when they made that choice. And in my opinion, I think it's something different. I think it's something that we haven't really seen a lot be showcased for Mary Jane's character, because usually she's been like an actress or a model or something like that. But in this, I think it's a great way to connect her within Peter's life, where he was at the Daily Bugle and now he's a scientist, but now it's MJ who kind of has that role of being the investigative journalist. And her character, played by Laura Bailey, was, I think, really well written. At some points you get like, why is she acting like this? But I think it's because she really does care about Peter and his well-being, and that's why when they kind of discuss why they broke up in the first place, they've been separated for 6 months, and she's like, we broke up because you wouldn't stop treating me like a baby. It's because it really shows on how much Peter cares about MJ's safety, but she's also trying to say, hey, I can take care of myself just fine. So that kind of back and forth relationship that Peter and MJ have with each other is one of the highlights of the game's story, specifically when it pays off near the end, where they get back together and they share that really heartwarming moment. I think that's something that really shines within the writing of the story and the portrayal of this version of MJ. And I thought her missions were fine. They were like small enough that they weren't. Sorry, they weren't so like, oh, I hate playing as MJ. It was really like short and to the point, and I thought they were little like good cuts between the high-paced action of being Spider-Man to the small little like realistic gameplay of being MJ.
I actually really liked the dichotomy between Peter and MJ because it felt real. Like the only other time I've played a game where I felt that the relationship felt real. I know that sounds odd, but it's Nate and Elena. That's the only other time I've played a game where I'm like, I care about these two. I want these two to work out. And I'm stealing this straight from the IGN spoiler, the Beyond spoiler, but it's so true. The text argument that those two have is the most awkward but realistic thing ever when he's like, hey, this is over. And he's like, oh, no. And the way he's trying to, it's so real. Like everything. I really like the back and forth between those two. And for me, at no point did she do anything that I was like, why is she doing this? Like I absolutely always got where she was coming from. I always got where he was coming from. You know, you get him wanting to protect her, but you get her not wanting to be protected. So I really liked just everything about their relationship. I thought that was so incredibly written. And it, like I said, outside of the Uncharted games, I've never truly cared. Like, you know, you're like rooting for them to get back together. It's like you're watching a rom-com at one point, and you need them to get back together. So yeah, no, I absolutely loved her character, the way it was written, and everything.
Yeah, I just to kind of echo on that, my favorite part of their text argument is when Peter puts the Spider-Man costume on. He always is just like it's like he's taking a deep breath of fresh air. You know, where he kind of feels like, oh, I'm Spider-Man again. I'm good. The fact that they had that text argument while he was in the Spider-Man costume, and you heard his voice like go into like, oh no, I don't mean like he went from Spider-Man to Peter Parker, and that was such a cool moment because it was so real as far as, you know, Spider-Man swinging around the city is real. But I agree that I had the same thought where I was like, I haven't cared about a video game relationship like this since Nate and Elena, where they would argue and I'd be like, no, guys, please, no. That's fine. Nate, why did you do that?
Like when Nate fucked up at Uncharted 4, you're like, Nate, come on, man. You can't lie to the girl like this. Yeah. Spoiler alert for Uncharted 4.
Yeah, it's Uncharted 4 spoiler cast.
Spoiler alert for every Uncharted ever.
Except for 2, because then he was all about Jolie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bringing back Jolie, Dan. Love you.
So, but playing as Mary Jane, I also thought, and I said it last week, but I can get more into detail this week. It was like you're listening to a song and the DJ pulls the record up and it's like it does like the and everything's kind of awkward for a second, and then you get back into rhythm of it and you're like, oh shit, this is different and it feels great. I'm really glad that they did this. And then by the time MJ or Miles sections were over, I was thinking, oh damn, like I want to see more of what she's doing right now. But as this version of Mary Jane is my favorite version of Mary Jane ever. That's funny. Mary Jane and Peter are my favorite versions of those characters. But in the comic books and the cartoons and the movies, I've never really been an MJ guy. I always liked Black Cat more. Gwen Stacy was my first fictional crush. Like I loved Gwen Stacy, and when she died, it was devastating to me, even though I read it 30 years after it happened.
You've also had to watch that happen a lot.
Yeah,
that poor girl dies a lot.
So to have them bring this Mary Jane character, who I always think, all right, I have to put up with Mary Jane because she's in this, and even Emma Stone's version of Gwen Stacy was kind of a mixture of Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane. So I never felt too crazy about that portrayal of Gwen Stacy. So this Mary Jane completely won me over. I mean, minutes into her performance, where I watched her talk and I thought, all right, Mary Jane, cool. And then she just felt so real. She was a real character with real motivations. She wanted to not be carried around everywhere by Spider-Man, Peter. And
Until she did in that one scene, which was great.
it wasn't the trope that she normally has, which is you don't have enough time for me because you're too busy being Spider-Man, which is just such a bad
He's
take.
kind of just like her.
Thanks.
He's the voice actress.
It's such a bad take on the female protagonist, antagonist kind of character. So to have her be somebody who was like, no, I love you a lot, but we can't do this because I got to focus on me, and I can't have you constantly telling me, no, don't go live life because you're scared for me. So sorry, that was more than 4 seconds too.
Really, really quick. My favorite moment between those two was the when he was cooking for her and he got the alert and he ran out. That shit, I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
how he's like,
did you just great?
Did you just leave your clothes on my kitchen floor?
And he does like the awkward stance where he's like, oh, yes.
Yep.
And they said that was all improv. Like that was something that they just thought up. After.
It worked out well. So, Alex,
as far as Mary Jane's concerned, like she's always like the damsel in distress. She's always, always getting tied to the train tracks. It's always the handlebar mustache twirling guy, like I'm gonna get you, Spider-Man. And to deviate from that, to like you guys, kind of said it was cut from the same ilk as like Nate and Elena. Relationship wise, I agree. Dialogue wise, this was the most invested, I think, in terms of like character interaction that I'd felt since Firewatch, where I was like, the writing felt real, the interactions felt real. And the difference with Firewatch is these are, faceless people, but with Spider-Man, you get that Nate and Elena level of chemistry, but with dialogue that's relatable. That's not like, stop trying to find the Mayans. And
you haven't had that argument with a woman before?
Not this marriage, but
just you wait. It's
only
coming.
married once. But it was refreshing to sit there and be like, yeah, like you don't have to take care of me. You don't, like, let's be a team. But the nice thing is Nate and Elena were a team at points, but it was still like an escort mission. But then with Spider-Man, you get stuff that's like Grand Central Terminal, where you're playing as Mary Jane. You actually see how that team dynamic works, how she is, calling on Spider-Man, like, hey, set this distraction. Okay, get him. And like, I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of her missions because some of them just felt like, I don't want to say like tacked on, but at points it was just like, where have you been? Let me tell you, 15 minutes earlier. And it's like, just fucking tell me. Yeah. Like, why was she a vehicle to introduce Tombstone? Yeah. And
also that took me a lot longer than 15 minutes to beat. So
like, yeah, stuff like that, like frustrated me. Yeah. But then there was other aspects where I'm like, okay, cool. Like I appreciate like pumping the brakes a little bit and getting that opportunity to kind of see like what, like not like a peek behind the curtain, but like see what the other side of that story is.
Yeah. Brian,
I love it.
Mary Jane,
I fucking hate her.
Yeah.
Everybody said they loved her. Like I had to do something.
You got me.
No, I thought she was. I'm not gonna say she's like my favorite iteration of Mary Jane. I'm like you, Alden. I'm not a huge fan of Mary Jane. Like, in general, so I thought she was fine. I thought she was really well done. Like you said, Brandon, the dichotomy between her and Peter was amazing. They worked so well together. Yuri and Laura, like, I honestly, if you would have told me they were married, I would have believed you. Like in real life, like it just makes sense because they worked so well together. Her as a character in the game, though, like some of her missions were fun. I guess the one where she was in like Osborn's
lair.
The lair, yeah, whatever. I thought that was fun. I thought that was really cool, like sneaking through his apartment. That felt more believable to me than if like Spider-Man was doing it. Like I don't know. It just seemed right to me.
I agree.
Then some of them were just unnecessary, like introducing Tombstone or those. But as the character, being the reporter, I thought was great because we don't need another damsel in distress. We don't need those characters in games or anything really right now. So making her own strong character with her own story where she could be doing her own thing the entire game and she'd still be this like independent person. She didn't need Spider-Man for anything. The only time Spider-Man came into one of her missions was when she was literally held at gunpoint. Like it's not like she asked for him to be there all the time. I don't know. I think she was really well done. I don't know if I'd say she's like my favorite, but I think she was good.
She was never used as bait. Like right. she was never the cheese in the mousetrap.
Right. And that was great. And that was like good on you, Insomniac, for not making her that character. Because I was really afraid she was going to be that character.
Yeah, for sure.
And so yeah, I give her a solid thumbs up. I feel like it's the best Mary Jane ever. I mean, she probably is. Don't get me wrong.
Now that I think about it, yeah, she totally is.
She was the best Mary Jane. Just Mary Jane sucks. I get you on that.
It's a low bar.
I prefer Gwen Stacy any day, but unfortunately, Gwen Stacy falls in that hole. She was literally written to be the damsel in distress. She was literally written to be that character that dies just to make Spider-Man the character he is. So that's why I really like Spider-Gwen as the thing, because she's not that thing. It's not. This isn't about Spider-Gwen, but yeah.
Spider-Gwen is a badass, and when Insomniac makes Spider-Gwen, I'm never gonna play another game again.
I'm waiting for the Spider-Verse game by Insomniac.
Right.
That's really gotta be a thing.
Yeah. All right, no. Nicholas. I have no idea what you're doing, and if you're paying attention or if you're there. Mary Jane.
I haven't been this emotionally connected since Dan played Oxenfree. Yeah.
While binging Tom Hardy movies.
Right.
I don't know. Like, I guess it's a different perspective for me because, like, outside like the original Spider-Man movies, I don't have a lot of context for Mary Jane, so I can't say whether it was a good performance or bad performance. I didn't mind her. I did like that they got away from like the whole damsel in distress thing that's been overused so much. It was cool to see that she had her own independent missions where she did some really, really cool stuff. I actually kind of enjoyed the stealth sections because I like stealth games. So I was like, oh, stealth stuff. I like this. And like that whole coordination at the train station. Well, I agree with Alex that was kind of like, oh, are we really doing this? At the same time, it was still kind of cool to see them do the teamwork thing.
Yeah.
So it was one of those toss-ups of this isn't my favorite mechanic in the world, but story-wise, this is actually pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I could take it or leave it. Really, with Mary Jane, like I'm a Gwen Stacy guy too, so just chalk me on that board.
Gwen Stacy the band, because I love Gwen Stacy the band. I don't think anybody knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
I do. I was going to make the joke, but I don't think anyone's going to get that.
See, we're doing a podcast together then.
Hey.
We'll talk about the Saw video game and Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
The Christian hardcore band from like 12 years ago.
Yeah. The band that I only know of because
they're a Christian hardcore
Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
Dan, Mary Jane.
Yeah. I'll make this quick. I really disliked her missions. The character was really well done. The interactions were well done. I agree with all that. I don't like, playing these kind of games and then immediately being just sucked out to go sneak around whatever. I don't like it. That's just a personal opinion. But the one where they were at that Grand Central Station where they were working together, that was pretty cool. They did a really good job with that, I thought. Short of that, I mean, the primary focus for me wasn't, she was, of course, integral to the story, but like, Brian said, kind of take it or leave it. It's one of those things for me. Maybe that was Nick. I have no idea.
We've all said it, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to throw it to you again. I want to ask you.
Shit.
I also just realized he took his mask off and put his shirt on.
Yeah, I was going to say something.
Here's the thing. If my wife would have walked through that door and saw me with no shirt and a Spider-Man mask, I probably would have been something.
You should have just tried to stretch the mask over your body.
Yeah.
Or should have been like,
yeah, that would have been awesome. It was really, yeah. And I couldn't breathe.
Bad pod.
I'm glad you can breathe now. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. I'm not going to die. I'll make it through the cast. Maybe.
Go.
So, real quick.
Yes. Go ahead.
Mr. Negative. How'd you feel about Mr. Negative? Did you know who he was before you played the game? And how did you feel about him after?
Okay, so I didn't know who he was. I'm a Spider-Man fan. I mean, but I'm also a lot. I mean, I'm not like super not that much older than you guys, but I collected comics. I still have them. I mean, I just never read them. I stopped in probably 94, 95, 96, somewhere around there, college, and I just kind of stopped collecting. I don't know when he came out. I don't remember him in that like 12-year time span that I really was collecting. I thought he was really well done. I also saw that he was in a farmer's insurance commercial, which was cool. So, you know, I knew him from somewhere. That was it. That was all I had to say. He was
This
a
was
good
J.K.
character.
Simmons with the ultimate crossover.
Yeah, that's
you know?
right. Yeah, that's right.
Now I just wanted to actually be Mr. Negative in that commercial.
Yeah.
Like,
But he was a good
Just
character.
hanging out with J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, he was a good. You know, I thought that was our the primary bad guy until closer to the end of the movie.
That was his defining arc.
Right. He was well done. But really the main bad guy didn't really reveal. I mean, you could see where it was coming or going, but he was all right. He was all right.
my only gripe with how we handled the announcement of it is when we showed that thing off at E3, they told everybody who he was right out of the gate. Right from the minute they announced the game.
Me and you?
Huh? Me and you. PlayStation. You know who I work for, right? When we announced the game, we immediately told everybody who he was.
Hey,
and that I didn't like. Because if they didn't do that, I never would have connected those. I should say never. I wouldn't have connected those dots immediately. The first time I saw him, like, fuck this dude. He's going to be Mr. Negative. Because when they first announced it, and they showed that gameplay where he's swinging through downtown and he jumps on the helicopter and stuff, he says it right then and there who it is. And I'm like, well, it's kind of... So if that never happened, it would have taken a lot longer for me to connect the dots. But I don't, and I had no idea who Mr. Negative was prior to this. Again, I don't have the Spider-Man backing that you and Brian and Evan do, and so.
When was he now, or when did he come out in the comics as a character, or was he something else?
Like 2009 or 2010, from Dan Slott, who's one of the writers in this game, and yeah, he's pretty interesting in the comics. They definitely. I think wrote him better in this game than they do in the comics, because sometimes it's like a bit different with his story. But I think overall, the character of Martin Lee is supposed to be this antithesis or this opposite of Spider-Man, where it's like the duality of Peter Parker and Spider-Man's worlds collide. So the same thing like Martin Lee and Mr. Negative, it's sometimes in the comics where he doesn't know he's Mr. Negative. Sometimes he's not aware that he's this bad person. In the game, he knows he's doing these bad things, but sometimes it's this cool relationship like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, same thing with Mr. Negative. And yeah, I do agree, Brandon. Like, even in the first reveal trailer in 2016 where they showed those guys in the mask, I knew right off the get-go, like, those are the inner demons. They got Mr. Negative in this game. This is going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. But I think it would have been a bit cooler for those people who don't know a lot about him if they didn't show that in the trailer, like, oh, what? And then even play through the game, like, this is how he goes bad. This is what he does. But yeah, I don't know if they had done something like that. I think that would have made a bigger surprise. But I think the way on how they handled his character in general was really well fleshed out from Stephen O. Young, who's incredible in his role, I think. But I think he was really a good red herring to who the real main villain was. And the story, I think, was built up in a way that you felt sympathetic for him, but you wanted to take him down at the same time. And I think he did a great job in the game.
Ryan?
Yeah. Just to add on to what Evan said, Mr. Negative was introduced, I'm pretty sure 2010 in A Brand New Day. It's like a short, like 6 or 8 issue run. I personally thought it was really forgettable in that comic book series. Yeah. Like, I thought he was cool, but like it was one of those villains that you're like, oh, that's great for this. I guess I'll never see him again. So them bringing him in the game was way out of left field. Like, I don't think anybody would have expected that. And like, they did a really good job of making him a great villain with like motive and everything in the game. And yeah, them revealing him as the villain at E3 kind of soured it a bit. Especially like you go like, this whole time you're like, man, this game is gonna have Martin Lee, Mr. Negative as the villain. That's cool because that's somebody nobody would have thought to be a villain. And then literally the second the game starts, you're like, oh, never mind, it's Doctor.
Yeah.
That really like ruined just his inclusion in there. Not that it ruined him as a character, just him as, you know, thing. And like I got the collector's edition of the game, and they never showed what the statue was. So like when I opened it and immediately saw the Dr. Octopus like tentacle on it, I was just like, oh well, okay. That's like
It said spoiler alert on the box.
Yeah, it said do not open.
It said that.
Right.
I knew he was gonna be in the game, but like it's just like they made you like feel like Martin Lee was gonna be this big, like massive villain in this game when he really was kind of fodder. He was almost like as low in importance as the rest of the Sinister Six was. He just had more screen time, but he really didn't have as much to do on the team as. Yes, thank you, Alden. He really did not have much to do on the team as like Scorpion or Rhino or whatever. It just really didn't amount to too much.
Which I think would have been cool if they didn't tease the Sinister Six at all, and then it would be the misdirect, like, oh shit, these guys are in it. But knowing that they were all in it, it was a little bit like, well, you know. And I don't know about you guys, but that first time I fought him and I beat him, I was like, that was a really quick boss fight. I guess I'm done with him now.
But then the trophy doesn't pop, and you're like,
wait a minute.
I agree. He's not even on the statue, is he? Like, I didn't even realize that.
No, his sword is.
This, where is it? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, the sword's there. Yeah, I didn't really know Mr. Negative. I knew him from that comic run. And that was an early Dan Slott run where I thought he was still trying to find his way, and I didn't think the comics were that great until later on. So when they announced Mr. Negative for the game, I just kind of thought, it'll be fine. But it's Insomniac, so I trusted them to make it at least fun, even if the story part of his, you know, his backstory or whatever wasn't great. But holy shit, they made his story fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was a great character, and you guys are all right, where I wish they hadn't told people that he was Mr. Negative. I think that would have been you would have put that together kind of as you play if you knew who the character was. But the reveal would have been so much more fantastic because they did build to that big Doc Ock reveal, which we all knew was going to happen. It was fun to watch it play out. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like their relationship was amazing, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. But I felt like they used Martin Lee to throw people off that, oh, maybe Doc Ock's not in the game. But the minute Peter swings into the fucking Doc Ock's lab and he's like, hey, I'm Otto Octavius, and here's my weird glasses that I like to wear sometimes for some reason.
They're for welding, Alden.
Yeah.
They're for welding.
Oh, you know what? I missed that, I guess.
It makes them feel humble.
I was just thinking about Doc Ock and how we were building octopus arms.
Did everybody else do this with the arms? Because I totally did. As soon as I took control of them.
Nope.
I've been talking to people in the field and they were all like, yeah, so does I. And then my wife was sitting there like, you're such a child. I'm like, I know, right? Look.
And then Spider Bukkake, right?
Damn straight.
Damn right.
Web Bukkake.
It's in the DLC.
So yeah, I thought it was really great. The way that the City Hall scene played out.
Oof.
Yes. And I don't know if it falls more under Miles Morales, but that scene played out in such up until that point, the game was a fun superhero game. And then an actual terrorist attack starts happening around you in a city. And I got goosebumps because you start to realize this is way too real. Like this feels terrifying. My armpits are sweating, which is really just a normal day for me. I wouldn't touch it.
Really right.
But I thought they did such a great job with a character that I didn't expect to be a great character. We all knew that they were going to get to the Sinister Six. So to have, I assumed he was just fodder for the early game, but he turned out to be really impressive and really kind of scary, wherein the character himself wasn't that scary before.
which I think is cool because there's the Sinister Six boss fights, there's the Mr. Negative boss fights, there's also the Fisk boss fight, the Taskmaster boss fight, and the Tombstone boss fight. So I like that you constantly got the misdirect. Like there was constantly somebody different. And I liked how the Tombstone and the Taskmaster things were, if you weren't going for the platinum like we all did, completely missable. Like you wouldn't even bump into Tombstone at all.
And it's funny that you say it, because I feel like all of these bosses, every single one of those boss fights felt like a different game, which you don't get a lot of times in an open world action game, and especially a superhero game. Normally you build through the level or the game, and at the end of every section you play a boss fight that's the same as the last one. It can just do a couple things different. And every single one of those fights was a different fight. Who hasn't talked about Mr. Negative? I need to keep track of this.
Don't mind if I do. So I didn't know a thing about Martin Lee or Mr. Negative headed in. I knew who he was because of the reveals and things like that. But when they were like, Mr. Negative's the villain, in my head, I'm like, that's like if Rocksteady came out with an Arkham game. They're like, the first villain's Egghead. Yeah. And it's just like, cool, like challenge accepted, I guess. But let's see, make this interesting. And I think in literature, just in general, comics or otherwise, the best villains are the ones that think they're the hero, the ones that feel like what they're doing is right. And they did such a good job, away from like Rhino, Vulture, Electro, Taskmaster, everybody like that. When you focus in on Octavius and Lee, the motivations were there, the backstory was there, the reasonings and rationale were there. And the way when you see how Martin Lee kind of got the powers and how he killed his parents and things like that, you see that tangential link between Osborn and Octavius, and you're like, oh shit, all three of these guys are linked together. They all have that same, like, Octavius and Lee rather have that same kind of like direction in mind of who they're trying to take down. And I think that's what made it so, like, I know that it was the misdirect that everybody kind of knew that there was going to be like a bigger bad to kind of, there was going to be the Palpatine to the Darth Vader kind of situation coming, but it was still like how they took you there. I think that's more of a credit to Insomniac and the writing staff, is you sat there and there were moments where I was like, oh, yep, it's going to be Doc Ock. But then there were still parts of me that are like, but is it?
Right.
Is that going to be game number 2? Like, is this is like the slowest of slow burns? But in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I know there's 6 villains, and Doc Ock is like really Spider-Man's archest of arch nemesis, because he is that guy that is like, if Peter didn't have that ounce of morality, then that's who he easily could become. And so he makes that great, I can't think of, he's the good antithesis and everything like that. But the way they linked everything together, I think just made that character so much stronger. But yeah, that City Hall mission, dude, goddamn. Yeah. Like you said, like I sat there and I'm like, all right, cool. Like, this is a fun little game I'm playing. I'm having a great time. And it's like death becomes everyone. And you're like, oh shit. Oh God, we got real. And it struck such a good chord between like what made the Raimi films great and what made like the Nolan verse of Batman so good is it was that game that was so full of levity with its characters, but it's like, hey, guess what? We're going to fucking go there. Mm-hmm. And it did so well. And I thought Martin Lee was such an integral part of everything else around it, because like I said, the backstory and the believability behind his motivations were there. They were so strong.
It's funny you said the Nolan Batman films, because that was exactly what I thought of that scene. Like, is any of the shit that the Joker does when you're used to like growing up and watching the cartoons and stuff like that. Like, the Joker was a bad guy, but he was usually pretty much just focused on Batman. But then in The Dark Knight, he's blowing up fucking hospitals and taking down stadiums, and you're like, oh my God, like, I cannot believe I'm watching this happen. And when that happened in Spider-Man, that was my first thought, was it felt like a Dark Knight moment. Mm-hmm.
Everybody was incidental casualties on his way to Osborn.
Exactly. Yeah. And he didn't care. Yeah.
Yeah. He poisoned, like, he let out the Black Plague. Like, you saw that happening so many times, but it was like the hospital scene in Batman, where you saw it happening and you were like, okay, how's it going to end at the last second?
Yeah, nope.
So, and I had the same thought with that, with the, what's it called? What was it called?
City Hall bombing?
Devil's Breath.
Devil's Breath.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I had the exact same thought with that vial. Every single time it almost broke, I'd be like, I know this is you're gonna keep doing
it. It was like it's like watching The Rock, the movie, not the wrestler, where it's just like, oh yeah, like that's the MacGuffin. Like we're just gonna stop that vial of red balls from breaking.
It's like stopping the bomb at 1 second every single time. But yeah.
And when Ock grabs it, twists it, and breaks it, I loudly went.
Didn't get into your lungs that way. See, it is. He's got the devil's.
I got the devil's breath. It's funny. I was playing the game too while I had the remnants of a cold. Like I got a real bad cold, and then the only thing that stuck with me was this really bad cough. And I'm playing the game, and all the characters are coughing, and then I'm like, I feel like I can't breathe too.
That's the VR component.
It's contagious.
They gave me everybody who opened the case got a cold right before.
Yes, it was a 4D experience.
So what did you guys think of Doc Ock? I mean, most specifically, focus on, I guess, the build up, the Peter and Ock's relationship, and then that turn at the end, especially the ending where. It was so emotional for me. I don't know about you guys. But that's the most emotional I felt in the game. Is when he's walking away from Ock crying. Because he feels for him so much.
Yeah, it's the way he's crying out to Peter, like they're gonna. And when he says they're gonna take my arms, I was like, no, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole back and forth when they were fighting on which. Love that boss fight, especially on the side of the building. I just love. I know it was that end part. That fight became pretty simplistic, but I just like how it was shot. But when like he rips the mask off and he's like, "You had your chance, Parker," and I like how it's just the look on Peter where he's like, "He fucking knew it was me this whole time, and I've gone out of my way to save this man, and it's me, and he still doesn't care." Like, once they did that, and then the thing you're talking about, the ending, that's a gut punch. This game.
Can I take this one first? I got to run real quick, kids. But anyway, real quick. It was awesome. That was my favorite part of the movie. I keep calling it a movie because that's how good it is. Favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
Right. So the boss fight, the actual fight itself, not so much, but the dialogue and the interaction, the back and forth between them. And this is going to sound a little cheesy, but it really reminded me of like Star Wars, the end of the last of the prequels when Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting. It's like, you were the chosen one. I loved you, or whatever. You know, it was just that connection that they had, and just that, man, that killed me. It killed me playing that part. And I don't get super emotional through certain games, most games. But like when at the end, you know, when you do the May thing that happened, you know, when she died, I almost didn't even care, which is kind of gross, I guess, and sad. But I mean, I was just like, you know what, but she really wasn't that integral for me in the whole game. But that last part with Ock, and I was just like, man, it's like father and son, and you know, just ripping that relationship apart, and is, you know, literally and figuratively almost. It was amazing. That was by far the best part of the game for me.
Okay, now Dan, go kids. Brian.
Okay. So I have a lot to say about this, so bear with me.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put me on
strap in, boys.
and this is gonna be obvious when I say it, or this is gonna be like, yeah, duh, of course. But making Dr. Octopus a prosthetics engineer was absolutely genius. Absolutely genius. Not just being somebody that wears prosthetics, but like starting up that game and going to the lab and walking in as Peter and just seeing prosthetics everywhere completely blew my mind. Like I literally called my best friend to talk to him, and I was like, this is literally the most perfect thing they could have done for Dr. Octopus. Like it makes so much sense, giving him that degenerative disease, making his body fail on him, and him trying to find ways to make your body better, and trying to, you know, not just fix what's wrong, but enhance what's there, I guess, was this whole like, or whatever. And it just like in the comics, I never understood like why does Dr. Octopus have and that just what like it was weird. It was cool, but it was weird. And in this, I was like completely flabbergasted that they even would have thought to do that.
Mhm.
I know like lately, like prosthetics have like come into the limelight in video games, with like multiple games having protagonists with prosthetics, but having the villain have prosthetics was super interesting to me. And then the character himself, like Dan mentioned, the whole like father-son dynamic with Peter was so well done, to where I'm somebody that gets really emotional at everything, unlike Dan.
Big softy.
Brother.
Like, happy, sad, I will cry at everything. It's like no joke. I was like bawling during that last boss fight. Not only because of the like he knew that Peter was Spider-Man the whole time, but while they were fighting and Peter's literally screaming and like begging him for that vial of anti-serum, and he's just like not giving a single fuck. He's just like laughing it all off. Like seeing his entire arc and seeing him go from that really caring father figure that really just wants to help people and make them better, for lack of a better word, to literally his mind snapping because he could not get to where he wanted, so he just ended up, experimenting on himself. And they even said, like, if you keep doing this, you're going to mess with your mind, and he didn't care. He just wanted to find the best ways to help people, and it destroyed him. It just resonated with me like so hard. So this was by far the best iteration of Doc Ock. Probably one of the best iterations of a like supervillain period to me. It was just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, Evan, real quick, your mic keeps buzzing. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. Do I sound clear or?
you sound clear, but there's a buzzing that keeps happening.
Stop trying to
know if-
shave your microphone, Evan.
Yeah,
I have
it does sound like there's a
headphones,
razor
so-
just sitting right there.
Sure.
So, jeez.
Hello.
I agree. So, build up to Doc Ock, and they humanized him so well. And there have been moments in the comics and in the movies where they've done a good job with Ock, but
Yeah, Alfred Molina played him very well, I thought.
He did,
yeah,
but
not to this level.
I feel like what Insomniac did is they tried to nail down a real, honest motivation for so many of these characters, for Peter, for MJ, for Doc Ock, for Norman Osborn, for Miles. They must have really sat in a room, and it's crazy how much work. And I said this last week. It's crazy how much work they put into these characters and the different things that can happen in these games. And they did it in 3 years. You would have thought that they had been working on this for 5-6 years, trying to nail it down before they get in there and try to really make it happen.
I for sure thought it was a 6-year game.
Yeah. I really thought that they had been working on it in secret for a long time before they announced it. But
they said they took the world building aspects that they learned from Sunset Overdrive and then they just immediately went into it after that. So
insane.
But yeah, that all of the build up with Ock and I didn't necessarily feel for Otto the most, but the way that Peter interacted with him, and you could see that he had built this father character up in his mind, where he finally had that father figure, because he lost his father, he lost his uncle, and now here's this brilliant scientist who's just trying to change the world. And as you go on and you start to pick apart what happened with Otto, and you start to realize he didn't just snap. It wasn't that chip that he put in his brain. These are things that he's had in him that have been building and building and building. This is years worth of hatred and anger and this complete other side of him that he hasn't let out, that he's been suppressing, that's been there, that he only shows in private. And Peter had no idea that this side of him even existed. And then he puts the chip in his head and it makes him worse, and it lets that kind of depression or anger or whatever it is take over his brain and literally murder millions of people. So to watch Peter have to come to grips with that was heartbreaking to me, because he had this thing that meant so much to him, and he thought, I know so much about the world, and here's this guy that I care about so much, and all of a sudden that's ripped from him. And you see that when he's hoping this entire time that Otto can be reconciled, and that final fight where he's coming to grips with the fact that no, like I've lost this man and I love this man, but he's gone now and I have to let him go. That's what that scene meant to me, was him saying, I wanted to make him better, and now I realize that I can't. This isn't something I'm capable of. I have to walk away. And he struggled with that so much. And it was so well done. And like Dan said, the Aunt May stuff didn't get to me very much.
You guys are fucking cold-hearted.
They
man.
didn't build up her story very
I don't care.
They didn't.
It's
Old women die. Get over it.
No, but the way the Aunt May thing hit me because it was obviously right after that, but it was another thing that she says when he's like, "Oh, ma'am, you're gonna be okay," and she says, "Let me see my grandson," or nephew, excuse me. And the way she says that, but then it's the struggle that you see him going through, and again, it's just the acting done by I forget what the guy is, not the mocap, but regardless, okay. When you see him, there you go. I knew you'd have it. When you see him have to process, I can save her or I can save everybody else, and when he finally just like lets go of it and lets it happen, and yes, I know as soon as it went to black, you would hear the faint beeping and then the flat line, but you guys are fucking cold because that broke my heart. My wife, who's crawling off camera right now, so you can't see her. Hi, babe. Was blubbering. So
that destroyed me. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, "Which was the sadder scene?" And the poll was, "I don't feel so good," or "I don't know what to do."
Oof. Yeah, I saw that one.
Heartbreaking because both of those scenes sucked.
No, I don't know what to do. Got me way more than I don't feel. Yeah, no, I felt no emotion for Infinity War.
Oh, jeez.
This broke me emotionally because of how invested I am in these characters and how they handled that arc with Otto Octavius and Peter Parker being this father-son relationship and having them be both trying to do the right thing at first, at what you see Otto doing, and then it slowly starts to go in the direction that you think it's going, where he's becoming Dr. Octopus. And you're helping make the tentacles, you're helping make the octopus tentacles throughout the game whenever you're working at the lab, which is such a neat idea to think about. And when that boss fight happens, and when that emotional scene happens with Doc Ock, I agree with, I felt so sad during that Aunt May scene. I'm like, you heartless guys. But I cried more, I think, during the Octavius scene because of how they build up this relationship right from the get-go. Right when you start the game as Peter, after you take down Fisk at the lab, and then you get this cool relationship with, like, you okay, Doc Ock? Dr. Octavius? And then even that other scene, like, oh, if you want to find another position with more of a future, you should probably look somewhere else. And then he's like, well, I came to work for you because of what you have up here, and that's not going anywhere, so neither am I. And then they hug each other, and like that, I already know what's like, it's already going to get me. And then I didn't expect to get me right that. But I'm actually feeling pretty emotional just thinking about it again, because I beat it a second time last night to prepare for this.
Jeez.
But it's it really hits me hard whenever I see that scene, from John Bumniak's facial expressions to Yuri Lowenthal's voice acting, and even William Sawyer's as Dr. Octopus is fantastic. He has such a huge range when it comes to emotional scenes and the heartbreaking scenes and even the vicious scenes where he is Otto Octavius and Dr. Octopus. You hear the difference. And, you know, clearly when you get that relationship between him and Yuri voice acting together and sharing these lines and sharing their feelings about, like, you were everything I wanted to be, that broke me right there. And, like, you just threw it away. And it shows how much he meant to Peter and how quickly he went into that dark path and how he couldn't come back from it afterwards. And when he was locked up in the raft, that got me more too. Like, oh my God, it's over. It was a great interpretation of that character. Because I always loved like Venom and Green Goblin, but Dr. Octopus was like, he's cool. I like him a lot, but he's not like, oh, my top 5 list of villains. But now he is. Because of this role in this game, now he is in my top 5 because he was fantastic. One of my favorite versions.
We've all hit on Peter constantly seeking that sort of like father-son dynamic, that male role model that he's lacked. How good did that second post-credit sequence feel? Where you're like, oh shit, he gets to be the guy he's looked for.
Right.
Yeah. I know.
Damn. The good old puberty joke, which is hilarious the way he delivered that.
Yeah. I do want to talk about that so bad. Nick, do you have anything to say about Doc Ock? I'm sorry that you're going last and everyone has said everything.
Ditto.
The only thing I'll say is I'll take since everyone covered the emotional ends of it, I found the actual boss fight itself was not the best the game had to offer. Like I felt like the actual combat sequence of that was very lackluster because it was just the same takedown on repeat. And then he'd do the same. Like, I understand boss fights are patterned a certain way, but I felt like that pattern for the final boss, the end game boss, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. But then I had to tilt my head back for the next 10 minutes of the game because I cried like a small child.
Right.
I'm already something emotional thinking about it.
I'm sitting there. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got my head tilted back. My wife comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing. It's fine. I'm okay."
I'm not crying. I'll tell you that much right now.
Yeah. Like there's only like I think 3 video games where I've actually legit like had a tear at the end of it. Like Walking Dead Season 1 from Telltale Games is one of them.
Yep.
This game was Spider-Man and God, what was the last one?
The Last of Us. The Last of Us. The Last of Us.
Wait, Brandon, we're not talking about The Last of Us. You'll never want me on a podcast again if we talk about The Last of Us, okay?
That scene didn't wreck you?
No, that scene did literally nothing for me. I just kind of went, okay.
Kid died. Fuck him. That's like Alex earlier with old women die. Yeah, but kids don't. See, that's not.
No, I'm a cold, heartless person.
I see that.
On different levels.
I can see where you're coming from as far as the last boss fight goes. Maybe I'm unfairly giving Insomniac a pass because as I was playing it, I thought this is much easier than any of the fights that I've had so far in this game. And my only thought process was that this must have been intentional. They must have decided that for the emotional arc, they don't want people going into this fight and dying and starting over and dying and starting over.
Breaking their controller like Dan did.
So they could get through that entire sequence in one go instead of having a break in there of an hour of somebody who's not great at the game. Maybe
that makes sense. Yeah.
Maybe I'm reaching there because I trust Insomniac so much as far as the rest of the game goes. But that's the only thing I could think of that kind of calmed my thoughts there where I was like, you know what? It's really easy. That's fine.
Actually, I really don't think any of the boss fights were particularly hard. I think they all, like Nick said earlier, that you found the loop, obviously. Oddly enough, the first one in the bank was probably the one I struggled with the most because you're still learning everything and you're trying to figure out. Like,
with Shocker?
Yeah, like you're like, oh shit, I can throw that at him now. And then when he blows everything up, you're like, well, what the hell do I do? Like, now what do I do? I'd probably say that's the boss fight I struggled with most.
You're not on camera, Mary. You can stop.
My wife is like fucking army rolling
She's
around
trying
the
to do
side.
Mission Impossible. She's 12 feet away from the camera.
Tangentially speaking, it was Evan. You can refresh me on who was the actor for Dr. Octopus?
I'm not sure who the mocap is, but the voice actor is William Sawyers.
So
fantastic.
So like I was like just gutted by his performance at the end, and then so I was like, oh, what else has this guy done? And I saw he was Morden Solus in Mass Effect 3, and I was like, that motherfucker has made me cry twice. Son of a bitch.
That was rough.
Never again, though.
Right.
All right, so I want to talk about Miles so bad. I'm gonna let Nick go first because he got the leftovers on that one.
It doesn't care about children. He already said that.
That's true. Let go. See, Nick, you started talking about last
children podcast.
Well, then you can't be on it, Evan.
Killing me, Nick.
Right.
Like they killed that poor little girl.
Okay, we're not touching on that one. Miles. Okay, Miles Morales. All right. The amount of like I didn't read a lot of comics or anything like that, but I understand fan service and how much this series means to a lot of people. And I thought this,
Right.
and I thought this game did fan service in an absolutely perfect way. And having side bits with Miles and introducing him as a character and like slowly introducing him. The pacing they introduced him at is, oh, here's a little bit of Miles. And like, I didn't make the connection. It was like you're working with his dad through that one side mission. You're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And he's like, oh, my son. I'm like, oh, well, who's your son? And they're like, oh, it's Miles. I'm like, oh. I was just sitting there like having like a fan moment for a second. I was just like, this is such a cool way of introducing it. And like that whole bomb sequence, which is way too real. And then like Peter's unconscious and you're like, well, Peter's unconscious. Who's going to do something? Like someone's got to do something. And then they're like, oh, well, Miles is going to do something. I'm like, oh, this is scary. Like it was terrifying. Cause like, it's not your first time, but it's like you're in this really tense situation. You have no powers, you have no abilities, and you're trying to sneak through like dozens upon dozens of these guys who are just killing people in front of you. And it was just such like you guys said, it just takes you out of that, oh, this is a great superhero game. And it gives me that bit that I love about DC is like DC can do dark stuff really well, but they can never nail the lighter side of things. And I think Insomniac nailed that thing that I don't like about a majority of Marvel is that they don't do the darker stuff really well sometimes. And I think they really nailed the balance, especially balance of not having too much Miles and not too little. And plus that post-credit scene was probably the best thing I've seen at the end of a game ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody else talk because I'm gonna want to talk about Miles a lot.
Okay. I've got a good chunk of comments on this.
Do it.
So I was extremely skeptical when I first saw that Miles was going to be in the game because they said
same. I was too.
Like this Miles has been in this universe the entire time. He wasn't introduced from the Ultimate Universe or whatever. And in the comics, as I'm sure Evan and you know, Alden, like that's a big part of his character. That he's from a different universe. That he became Spider-Man, became Spider-Man proper because Peter Parker died. Like he got traumatized a lot, and then currently he's in the Earth 616 universe, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Because of the whole Secret Wars thing, and that also like formed his character a lot. So he had a lot of like emotional trauma that he went through to make him the character that he was.
Yeah.
So having him just be in this universe from the get-go with a Spider-Man there, which I mean, I guess is kind of like the beginning of like the Ultimate Universe, where he was in that universe with Spider-Man there the whole time. But it just seemed odd to me. Oh wow, that scared the hell out of me, Brandon.
Sorry, he wanted to come say hi.
That's adorable.
So yeah, I was extremely skeptical with what they were gonna do with him as a character, but I think they nailed it. I think from a story perspective, Miles was great. Introducing his dad, Jefferson Davis, and having him go through those missions, and then having him die, and that's how like Miles and Peter become connected, and it worked so well. I think the playable missions as him could have been left out of the game. I don't think they were necessary. I liked them less than I did the Mary Jane missions, but I at least thought Mary Jane's stealth missions fit with what was going on in the game. I didn't think any of the ones with Miles fit. I just felt like they were kind of tagged in to be like, hey, we've got Miles in this game too, and he's very important. It's like, if you haven't read the comics, then like, yeah, that's cool. But if you have read the comics, you're like, yeah, of course, I know he's important. Duh. But yeah, from a gameplay perspective, I don't think it was necessary. From a story perspective, I think they nailed it.
Initially, it felt like that those Old Spice commercials with that guy's like 2 tickets to the thing you love. Like that's how I felt with like the level of fan service it was. Yeah. But like on the a buddy of mine did E3 like a post show reactions after the I guess the Finister 5 trailer that they showed. I sat there and I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty us. Like I had in my head that Miles Morales was going to be like the last half of the game, And there was that part of me that's just like, and like,
Yeah.
I'm not mad that he wasn't. I'm mad that I was wrong because that's like my least favorite thing in the world. But like, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, cool. I appreciate how little he was in this. I appreciated his roles that he took on like in the periphery. I'm sure his friend is pissed that he never told Peter or Spider-Man about his hacking device, but it felt so right, and it really just hit home, like, you know, after the post-credit sequence where you're like, okay, cool, holy shit, the second one that comes out in, God, I hope sooner than 2023 is going to be one of was like, and, oh my God, that's a whole other thing, but like there's so much good now heading into a second one because of how well they handled Miles and how little he played into it as like a major player in the story.
Yeah, there was a way too long of a stretch when after the bombing that I was like, dude, is Peter gonna die right here? And this is where Miles takes over. Like, I actually thought that for quite a while. Kind of all the way up until he was standing at the funeral. I'm like, okay, no, he's alive. So I was like, because I kind of thought the same thing, that we would take over and it'd just be, that would be a hard sell because obviously Insomniac wants to make this their next big thing and can't really, you know, kill the guy off because everybody loves Spider-Man, right? Who are you?
Spider-Man.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
All right, say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
All right, shoot some webs and then get out of
on
here.
the live stream right now. Is that what that plan?
Do it again.
Yeah. Good one.
Like the Spider-Man left Dan's
And he
house, came here and put a shirt on.
Guys, I have to reveal.
Yeah, Miles is my favorite Spider-Man, and
Oh, you like Miles?
yeah, so they showed him in the trailer, and they had that quick scene of him where I went, "Oh shit, that's Miles!" And I kind of had the same concern, honestly, because it would be kind of jarring to go from half a game that's Peter Parker and then half a game that's Miles. So I was worried that it was going to be Peter Parker, Peter's dead now, and Miles, or Peter can't.
Batman
fight
Beyond
right
him.
now.
Let him be Peter from the chair, you know.
Yeah. So I got the feeling pretty early on in the actual trailers, though, that Peter was going to kind of be Spider-Man for most of the game, at least. And I didn't want them to just throw it to Miles, like, all right, Peter's dead now in the third quarter of the game. Here's Miles now, because Miles deserved to kind of have his story told. Otherwise, it wouldn't be emotional enough to have him thrown in there, and people would have no idea who he was. Because as popular as he is to me, you know, a lot of people don't know where he comes from and what he does. Now, the most embarrassing part of this is I've read every comic book with Miles Morales in it. I've watched some of the Spider-Man cartoon, but they kept panning to Jefferson Davis, and Jefferson Davis is helping Spider-Man, and I kept thinking, I know that name. Why do I know that name?
It's because we live right off of Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, because we hear Jefferson Davis so much. And
I live on him. Like, wait, what?
And then at some point before the whole scene happened, it clicked with me that, oh shit, that's why I know that name. This is Miles' dad.
No, he's gonna die. Does he die in the comics too?
No.
Okay.
He doesn't die at all in the comics, and so I definitely expected throughout that scene that Miles was going to get to him, and he was going to be kind of, you know, the coughing.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay, Dad. Nope. He super wasn't okay.
Trope, yeah.
Like, yeah, because he's like, oh, my son's real into technology. I'm like, that's Miles' dad. That guy's fucked.
Yeah. It was just, I love Miles Morales so much. And then to have these parts where you play as him, I kind of started to think, well, maybe Insomniac just really likes Miles the character, but they're not going to introduce any sort of Spider-Man powers to him, because how are they going to fit him into this world with Spider-Man? And to have that post-credit scene, or as he's walking around and you see the spider fall off MJ, my fiance Tanya was sitting next to me in bed crocheting, and
Hell yeah, rocker, get some gloves, man.
Yeah, as she's crocheting,
free hats.
Miles, she makes a lot of hats. Miles walks in, and the spider starts walking towards him, and I just went, watch, because you saw it coming, and I was so excited.
Spider really hung on to MJ for a while.
It really
she had
did.
done a lot.
What the hell was that bullshit?
It was like
He was out for like 3 days. Yeah. And then it's like, I'm not gonna bite her.
Yeah.
It's like 2 seconds after it jumps on Miles, it's like, well, fuck this guy. Spider-Man.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's what's so great about Miles in the comic universe is he has such a dark backstory. And honestly, through a lot of his stuff, a lot of what he's working through isn't the same as Peter, where he's just like, I got to do good. What Miles is driven by is his fear of being bad, because there's a lot of bad people in Miles's life and in Miles's family. So his fear is that he's got that dark side in him, and he doesn't want that to come out. And he has fights with people where he takes it too far, where he realizes, I could have killed that guy. I almost did, but I didn't. And he kind of has that kind of, did I do good or did I do bad? I'm not sure what I did, because I really hurt that guy. And so to have that dichotomy that makes him a little bit darker than Peter is really great. So they have to build that up for it to be Miles. And to take the entire game to build him up to be that was really great. So then to have that post-credit scene where he flips onto the ceiling and Peter's like, yeah, me too, was really great to see for the future of the game. I don't know how they're going to take it in Spider-Man 2, which is obviously coming.
Complete co-op. I'd lose my mind. I would lose my mind, honestly, if you could play Spider-Man with your friends and oh my lord.
Swing around the city, race each other.
And one of you is Miles. And how does that work? Is player 2 always Miles? Because I'm going to have to make my fiance play as Peter so I can just play as Miles the entire game.
You have to rock, paper, scissors. They need like a rock, paper, scissors mechanic with the DualShock 4 who gets to play Miles.
Yeah.
Use the touchpad.
So I really like the portrayal of Miles. I would have liked to see a little bit more of him. There were several hours that would go by where you didn't hear from him. Mm-hmm. And it was like Alex said, it was such a cool moment to see Peter become the father figure that he always wanted to be and never had, and get to mentor Miles. And that I kind of thought for a while that Miles wasn't going to get these spider powers, and he was there for Peter to mentor. So I'm really excited to see where they take him when the next game comes out, which isn't going to be anytime soon, and it's fucking driving me crazy.
That was the thing with me, right? Yeah, like I wanted to get it done before the DLC and everything, but as soon as like the credits rolled on it, because the entire thing felt like a really good season of a Spider-Man show, or like there was a moment where Octavius is, I don't remember if it's in Act 2 or Act 3, but Octavius is coming up as Doc Ock, and the camera starts at the like top of the ceiling, but you're looking at a puddle, and you see Doc Ock's reflection, and the camera kind of pans up with like behind Doc Ock, and I literally sat like on the world's most uncomfortable futon like I am right now, and I went, this is such a good fucking movie.
Yeah.
And like in my head, it's like, it's not. Like, you're not watching a really good Spider-Man movie. Like, this is a Spider-Man game that exists that people can go purchase and play and enjoy. And then I was like, oh shit. Like, this isn't like a show. It's not 6 months on and 6 months off. Like, it's gonna be like, I don't know how old my kid's gonna be when I'm buying Spider-Man 2. And like, that's just so infuriating, because I'm like, no, please, more, please.
Yeah. I mean, the DLC is coming. I hope that it adds plenty of story. They haven't really touched on what it's going to be. I know that on the Kind of Funny spoiler cast that Brian Ithar talks about people not expecting too much as far as gameplay hours. He said if you're expecting a 12-hour experience, you're not going to get that. But he didn't really touch on what the story was going to be like. He did say that they'd like to add more story as opposed to side missions. So that's a good sign. And Black Cat is also one of my favorite Spider-Man characters, so I'm really excited that that's going to be the first DLC.
Yeah.
And
I hope they're just like, surprise, February, backpack DLC. Find more backpacks. I'm like, yes!
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I'll pay for all the DLC.
Yes, please. I need it.
All Spider. It's a Spidey Squad DLC.
I'm ready. I need, guys. I'm gonna cry on the live stream again. Don't. I don't know. That won't happen. Too much.
Yeah. So Miles is awesome. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add about Miles? Because it's getting late, boys.
It is getting late.
We still
I just
have
want to say that I know we didn't even talk about the final post
Yeah,
credits.
that's what we need to talk about.
That blew my mind. But this is my favorite version of Miles of all time. I think that the pop itself is my favorite version of Miles. No, the character.
Evan, that's Finn from Star Wars.
He's just wearing a high school T-shirt and a hoodie. Damn, that's the wrong one. No, I just love how, because the main complaint that people have about Miles from the comics is that he's a copycat of Peter with no distinguishable factors. They just think, oh, he's directly doing what Peter would do, and that's it. But I didn't really get that vibe from the comics. I think he was just trying to find his own way as he was becoming Spider-Man, and he learned a lot after the death of Peter Parker, especially when he started to interact with Gwen Stacy and Ant-Man in the comics. But this game, like you guys just said, I'm echoing the same thing. Like, I love how they start with Jefferson Davis, as that's the gateway towards Miles. And then you see how they start to slowly connect with each other. And that scene between Peter and Miles at the funeral is kind of what got me, too. Like, I'm Peter. Listen, I was at the City Hall bombing. He's like, do I know you? Like, I was there, but I just want to say. And then Miles says, I know what you're going through. Like, that's what you were going to say, wasn't it? Like, it's all part of God's plan. Like, I love that relationship that they have with these these dialogue exchanges between Peter and Miles, and you see how, even though they're distant at first, and then that wonderful scene where Spider-Man is teaching Miles how to fight, or at least he's trying to teach him how to protect himself. That's a wonderful way of showing how Peter can inspire Miles as Spider-Man and still be there for him as Peter, and have Miles be his own person. He doesn't need to rely on Peter or even try and think of what Spider-Man would do. He's a huge Spider-Man fan, but he is actually inspired by his dad and the moral values that his dad does. Like, I'm a hero, just someone who never gives up. And that's what he follows throughout the entirety of the game. And I love that. It's such a payoff, where I was worried too. Brian, what you said, like, is he going to get Spider Powers? I don't know if it'll be worth it, but how it plays off, like, I'm so freaking excited to see Peter and Miles team up as Spider-Men in the sequel. And if you can play as Miles and Peter together as Spider-Man, that's going to be like a great gameplay mechanic and also a story mechanic as well. Like, how that's going to turn into the story and how much Peter is going to teach Miles how to be Spider-Man. I can't wait. But even more so, the final post-credit scene. I need the sequel now.
Don't you take the reins
right now.
Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. I said nothing about Miles yet. I literally have one thing, because I don't have the knowledge base of Miles like you guys do. One of the first little and it's a throwaway scene, but I really liked it, was Miles fixing the TV, that dude being a dick to him. But then just the way Peter comes in, he's like, I'm sure I've heard of Miles' dad, Jefferson Davis. Just the way he did it, I really liked it, because it was like, I guess, Peter's first step at that, like you said earlier, the father figure for Miles is, I guess the first step was at the funeral trying to comfort him. But then this was the first time where he's like, look, man, I got your back. Like, I'm not going to let anybody hurt you.
Such a great mentor moment where he's like, look, you need to back off him. I like you. I care about you. Being a dick.
Yep.
Miles, I care about you.
Yep.
So, Evan, do you want to talk about the post-credit scene?
Is that what I want to talk about? I don't know for sure. No, yes. I just need the sequel now, is basically all that post-credit scene told me, because I was really excited seeing Miles turn into, or at least get spider powers, and then Peter also flat out reveal that he was also Spider-Man too. I'm like, oh, it's not that weird. I love that. But what freaked me out more, and it's a funny story, is that when I got the review copy from Sony, I was playing that mission, and I was trying to skip through it or anything. I was just playing it to have fun, and also look at all the ins and outs of the cool architecture of this whole awesome penthouse. And then when we get to the secret lab, there's that whole metal tank. And then you can interact with it. But my first time playing, I actually didn't interact with it. I was looking at the table, and then, Silver Sable came in, and then the Spider's gone. MJ, I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like, crap, I don't know what's in that tank. And then lo and behold, that's what the end credit scene is. And it shows Harry Osborn was never in Europe in the first place. That's the whole huge red herring that they were telling us the entire time. Like, Harry's in Europe doing stuff for Oscorp. He was never in Europe. He was in this tank sick, and he has this disease just like his mom did, and he's being in there for treatment, and it's the Venom symbiote pretty much, or some form of the symbiote wrapped around Harry. and I couldn't be more excited. I know that a lot of people are like, well, wait, where's Eddie Brock? And if you look through a backpack,
Who
there's a
cares?
card that says exactly. Like I'm really
Go, Dan, go, Dan,
Aunt
go.
May's
Their
dead.
version
There's
of-
no rules.
exactly. Exactly. And
None
they
of you heartless
kill
fuckers
off
even
Aunt
care.
May in the first game, and people will still go and buy the sequel, even though they kill off this amazing character like Aunt May. And then they do this awesome, cool narrative twist where it's not Eddie who's Venom, it's Harry, and it's taking inspiration from the Ultimate Comics too, where it's not an alien symbiote; it's supposed to be a treatment to cure diseases, specifically cancer or whatever disease that Harry's mom had with the neurogenic disease. But I just cannot wait to see if they handled Doc Ock in such a great way, with Peter and Otto having this mentor-mentee relationship, and Harry being Peter's best friend, and if he's going to turn to Venom, and then Norman might turn to Green Goblin, I cannot wait to see that be played out. If I already cried in this game twice, I'm going to freaking lose my mind when the sequel comes out.
Well, like the Green Goblin breadcrumbs were there in the MJ Penthouse mission, where you find the mask, you find the blueprint, you find the pumpkin bombs near the tank and everything too. But even more so in a non-literal sense, when he approaches the tank and it's just green light reflecting on him. So there's still like that like visual cue there too. Yeah, just so much of that's so good. And the one thing that like really echoed with me was, you know, the symbiote, or I guess if you're going by the Venom trailer, symbiote.
Come on, Jenny Slate.
When you know, kind of going based off like the Raimi films and stuff like that, it exacerbates like the negative qualities in somebody. It creates that egotistical kind of drive in Peter. And so we're getting this version of Peter Parker who has just lost a father figure, who's just lost his mother figure, who is going to try and mentor this 15-year-old kid who has the same powers as he does now, or some semblance of them. And if that attaches to him and like revs him up to be some sort of like, you know, negative, like egotistical, cocky version of him, like how aggressive of a Peter Parker could we possibly see at some point? Like if the symbiote attaches to him and like, you know, ups the aggression in him and things like that, because he has had so much shit happen to him just in game one. And the idea of this version of Norman, who kind of has some Trump iconography to him in terms of the business magistrate turned politician, even like the political signs are kind of echo a lot of the same, you know, visual cues that like the Trump campaign took. You have that kind of figure possibly ramping up as a villain. You have one of his best friends possibly becoming a villain. Like there's so much, and I just want it, and I want it in my hands and in my mouth and all over me.
Hey now,
just put all the Spider-Man, just web blossom in my mouth.
All right.
And that was the show, guys.
I'm excited, damn it.
It's true.
Nick. Silent Nicholas.
Hold on, sorry, my mouse was unplugged. Saying there like,
unplugged. What are you packing up?
Web blossoms, I'm out of here.
Spider Cop has to go get his briefcase.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Spider Cop.
Oh my god. Freaking Spider Cop is the best thing in the universe.
Spider Cop's great. Fuck you, Kotaku. Okay, go ahead.
So I the one thing with, like, we're still talking about end credit scene. The best part of that is all this buildup of emotion they've built in Peter, and we have the symbiote just sitting there. It's like, okay, so let's get a Doc Ock battle going. Let's get the symbiote attached to Spider-Man, and let's really kick Game 2 into overdrive and see what we can do.
Yeah,
because that is gonna be amazing. Or if we've got like Venom and Green Goblin dual boss fight like we did with Rhino and Score. Oh my god,
I need that now. I need it.
And then, like Alex said, I'm sitting there. I watched that post-credit scene. I'm like, damn it! I'm gonna have to wait like 3 years for this,
right? At least.
And that's the worst part, is because like the last game that pulled me in like this was like the Arkham series. But the benefit for the Arkham series I had is I didn't start that till later, so I already had like Asylum, and then I could go right into City, and then I could keep going. But like I was here day one, so now I'm just sitting here like, what do I do with my life?
What did I do to deserve this?
Like
this show's gonna end as a Spider-Man support group.
True. We're here for you viewers. We need the sequel right now.
Brian, how'd you feel about the post credits and your build up to game 2?
So I loved it. I also was like, I need game 2 now. Whatever the sequel is, like I will fly over to North Carolina and break into Insomniac just to get all the secrets if I need to. I was
Good plan.
I have concerns with everything, but I do have concerns with the possibility of Harry being Venom. To my knowledge, he's only ever been Venom in one other medium, which is the Ultimate cartoon
show. Yeah,
and that was really odd.
It was.
That cartoon's not good.
Yes.
So I mean, just playing the first game, like I have no worries that they're gonna write it super well. I just don't know if this is the way I want Harry introduced into this universe, I guess.
Well, he was introduced through research stations, so I don't know what more you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He helped us save the fish.
Save the pigeons, Peter.
Yeah, I got some plastic. Like, yeah, that was fine. But like, I don't know. I feel like they could introduce him without making him a villain. I think it's cool that they're using the symbiote as the way to like heal him, or like the way to try and cure him. Like Evan mentioned in the Ultimate Comics, it was a like scientific creation as opposed to something from space.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be so much cooler if, like everybody else mentioned, it attaches to Spider-Man instead. Like they finally take Harry out of the thing because they think he's starting to get healed, and the symbiote tries to find its next.
Which gives you a vehicle to play as Miles.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that gives you a vehicle to play as Miles. And back to the Miles thing, before I forget, Nick mentioned the Arkham series, and I know, Brandon, you said you played it too, right? I'm
Yes.
sure most of us have played it.
Yeah.
I think the in Arkham Knight, you know those missions where you play as Batman and like Nightwing, or Batman and Robin at the same time?
Yeah.
How amazing would that be if you had both Spider-Men just like doing a mission and being able to switch between them with the press?
I need
I
it.
know a lot of people already are like, oh, this game is just copying the Arkham series, which they're wrong. They can go fuck off. But like, yeah, I do see that they take some inspirations from Batman, and that would be one thing that I think would work super well if they want to add Miles as a character.
I agree.
But back to the end credits, I think it was super well done. I think it would make more sense to make Green Goblin the like big villain in the next game, and have Venom be like, or the black suit Spidey be more of a thing than Venom is, I guess. Maybe give your hints to Venom, but having like black suit Spidey being incredibly like emotional after everything that happened in the first game, going up against Osborn in the second game, finally, after like hearing all the shit that he's been doing, I feel like it would make a much more impactful story than just bringing Venom in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
So if you guys had to pick a third villain, like, so we've got the breadcrumbs for Goblin, we've got the breadcrumbs for Venom or Black Suit Spider-Man or whatever. If you had to pick a third villain, say as like the mid-game boss, who would you pick?
Mysterio.
Mysterio would be cool.
Mysterio would be cool, but I feel like the only way for it to really have an exciting impact would be to kind of play it out like the Scarecrow fights in Arkham, which is great. That was one of my favorite parts of Arkham. But again, it's just going to be like, all right, you took that from Arkham.
Yeah.
So I do like Mysterio, but
I was going to say Sandman.
Sandman would be.
He'd be fun to fight in that world. I think. Yeah, I think it'd be. That'd be my go-to. So
we're back to the Spider-Man 2 movie game where you can fight Puma. Bring Puma back. Make Puma great again.
So Puma PS4.
On the Kind of Funny spoiler cast, they talked about plans for the next game, and Brian said that Marvel came to them and said, "This is going to be our game version of Iron Man.
Yep.
This is going to be the first of a universe."
Which is amazing.
So I really feel like by the time Spider-Man 2 is out, a couple more games will have come out, and something will kind of cross over from other games, you know, a Doctor Doom or something like that.
That's what I'm wondering, since it's weird because the Avengers project from Square Enix is a multi-platform game, but then this is a PlayStation exclusive. So I wonder if they are connected. Is that going to maybe turn off some people? It's like, well, I can only play Avengers on everything, but I can only play Spider-Man on my PS4. So it's like, I don't know. But I think that if they are doing that, and if the Avengers project is connected to this universe, they are going to knock it out of the park. If they nailed it this well with Spider-Man, and it's the same team from Marvel working on Avengers, it's going to be fantastic.
For some reason, Avengers project, as much as I'm excited for it, just feels like it's going to be Marvel Ultimate Alliance to me. I don't know why. It just gives me. That's what I feel like it's going to be. Not that I like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but there's no damn story in it. There's no story, you know. That's just what I feel like. I don't know. There's really no grounds for that, but for some reason, it's just I
get what you mean. I think that's because the only context we have for an Avengers game is really that, right? Outside of like the Lego franchise. So like they haven't really tackled the Avengers on a video game platform, so to speak. And I think Square Enix, because of their talent of writing in-depth RPGs and everything, if there's ever anyone that could make the Avengers story come through, it's them. The only thing that concerns me is it is Square Enix. So, like, is this game going to come out before I'm in my 50s?
Well,
we still haven't heard anything
developing it, or is it Crystal Dynamics?
Crystal Dynamics is developing it. Square is publishing it, and Eidos Montreal is co-developing it. And they said we're supposed to get something this year, like an announcement, but nothing. So it's like,
well, on the bright side, if Square is just publishing it, then they'll just release it on the same day as whatever the second biggest game of the year is.
They're going to drop it in a couple weeks with Red Dead.
Cool, because I have a prevailing theory that Square Enix only does two things, and that's release a Tomb Raider game alongside some other major release, or delay a Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Well, what else? Brian, what else do they do, Brian? What else do they delay a whole lot?
First of all, this game never great, so I don't want to hear it. While I have the speaking floor, I want to talk about villains in Spider-Man. So my dream villain in any Spider-Man game would be Hobgoblin. That's never going to happen. I love Hobgoblin to death, though. I think it would be a crazy, awesome villain, but nobody really knows him. They just know Green Goblin. But, so fun fact, the doctor that helps make the anti-serum, something Michaels.
Morgan?
Actually, the alter ego, like the name, is the alter ego of Michael Morbius. So that would be a really interesting villain.
Morbius is so good. I like Morbius a lot.
But the other one, I was actually talking to my brother about this because of the Taskmaster fights, where you're basically going through the city, and he'll just like snag you out of nowhere.
I love that. That was so cool.
And you know who I think would do it better? Fucking Craven.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Would be absolutely perfect in a sequel.
See, I think Mysterio would make a good Taskmaster style villain as like a Riddler trophy kind of deal.
Right.
But like when I said that, I was like, oh my god, if we could just get Craven and just call whatever, like some fucking Sony pony over here. But like I'm also like, what if Craven was voiced by Nolan North?
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
And it's
like
just
anyone not voiced by Nolan North at this point. Like I'm
just the guy's voiced by Troy Baker.
Are we all
so really? Just my dream game is a buddy cop couch co-op game where it's Nolan North and Troy Baker as cops playing themselves, but Troy's voice in Nolan and Nolan's voice in Troy.
Why?
That's my. I want someone to make that.
My mind just exploded.
It's like those Uncharted 4 teasers they had Remember before the game came out with Nolan and Troy? They were fantastic.
Oh, they were so good.
That was amazing.
Now I want that game too, Alex. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, Craven would be fucking great.
Craven would be, he would definitely be my pick for sure. He's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. I think he'd work better as maybe not the main bad guy, and maybe not but a little bit more than say the Taskmaster was in the game.
Like Tombstone, kind of.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
Sandman would
but
work like
I'd like to see
Tombstone,
more out of him.
probably.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a lot more out of him because it's when I think it was McFarlane that they did the when he started that Spider-Man series. I think he was, I don't know what issue it was, but it was only a few issues in, and it was such a good story that he I don't know who wrote it. Gosh, it's been so long. But one of my favorite bad
from
guys
last week. Remember?
Yeah.
I don't
Bendis.
remember. And Hobgoblin,
Fire escapes.
I love Hobgoblin too. Wasn't
See,
that
Hobgoblin could happen because Insomniac likes to use kind of that lesser known a little bit, so it wouldn't.
Yeah,
It could be possible.
If they put in Screwball, they can put in anybody.
Sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to steal the mic from you.
No,
Sorry.
no,
buddy.
you're fine. No, I'm just trying to remember. I can't remember. Was it Flash? Was he Hobgoblin at some point?
Flash was lots of things.
No, you know who
lots
was? Ned
Who was
Leeds.
Yeah.
His friend in Homecoming, or at least in the comics, Ned Leeds was Hobgoblin. Then something King, I think.
When was that? Gosh, I'm old.
I know. I need to catch up on my comics too.
You say I know?
Really quick, one villain I really am interested to see if they do even mention or show again is Lizard, because that was an awesome, cool little nod in the backpack where you see his blood, and he's like, "Oh, I remember that. I tried to reverse engineer his blood to make a cure for Dr. Connors. Too bad it didn't last." And I'm like, "What the fuck you talking about, Peter? Where's the Lizard? Is he in the sewers right now? Can we go fight him? I want to fight him."
The Chameleon too.
Yeah,
one of the side missions.
Chameleon's back at it again. I love that. I'm so excited to see this version of Lizard if he's in the sequel or DLC. I just need to see him.
I see Nick's message.
Yeah, we got to start wrapping it up. Nick's got to go in a couple minutes.
All right, Nick.
Post credits thing scene. Brandon,
Awesome.
go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bring it the fuck on. That is my quick synopsis.
Yeah, in I don't even know how to say this. In Insomniac, we trust. Like,
Yay! Because no one says it.
Never wanted it.
Because no one says that. I'm so happy someone said it.
That was insane.
So I'm a little concerned about the Harry being Venom, but I mean, I don't really care. Let's see what they do. And Brian Ithar talked about how people are complaining about the black suit not being in the game, which I saw a lot on Twitter too. And every time I saw that, I thought they've got to have bigger plans for it. It doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have it unless they have big plans for it. And Brian said that, yeah, we know that it should be in the game. That suit deserves its own moment.
Yes.
So they're obviously planning something. In Black Suit Spider-Man, it's my favorite time period of Peter Parker Spider-Man. So I'd love to see that story play out in the game.
Let's let Nick say his goodbyes, and then we'll wrap it all
Nick,
up.
we're gonna wrap it up, but you can go ahead and wrap it up. Anything you'd like to say, close it out, and you can head out of here.
No.
Nothing?
He already left. He unplugged his mouse again.
Sorry.
It
was a hard five.
I locked the front door already.
I'm in bed.
I'm in bed. I have my cup of cocoa. Pajamas.
I'm crocheting.
Okay, I'm of normal age too, so I haven't hit that stage yet.
Jeez.
Oh, fuck. And that was it. That's what Nick said. He just said, "I'm of normal age," and dropped the mic and walked off.
Sorry, my sleigh dogs are acting up out here. Am I supposed to be doing some sort of outro, I'm guessing?
Yeah,
that's the plan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm Nicholas Downey. I write for the Inner Circle Games Network. You can find my reviews, opinion pieces, and everything else. I've got a piece on why Spider Cop is not a problem coming later this weekend. So that'll be exciting. And yeah, if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at Undead3XVI.
And he has an awesome podcast himself called The Gaming Perspective. Great show. Everybody
The only thing the only person that is worse at plugging their show than you guys is me.
See, you've got to create the holes for you to plug them.
Just let Alex plug it for you, because
that's the trick.
What are you talking about? I'm gonna hire Alex to replace me on my own podcast.
Seriously.
My podcast.
Alex,
I'll take charge.
What game perspective is Saturdays at what time?
8-ish.
There you go, Alex. Go.
Oh my god, 8-ish. 8-ish.
Wow.
Come on.
Alex, plug it. Plug it, Alex. Let's hear that voice.
You gotta record it. You gotta record it the night before, so you always have that set time for the day.
Yeah, we don't listen. We don't follow that. here.
Oh my god, regularity.
He doesn't know what he's saying.
His voice is going into different octaves now. He has no idea what's happening.
This is how I talk. I am a very total person.
I just imagine like Alex has like his gaming setup is like perfectly organized. Everything's in a row perfectly, and it's just everything's just perfect. Like I should.
It's all symmetrically laid out.
Nope. This is a completely unpacked spare bedroom. I have enough hooked up to do the show every week.
Nice. Good call.
I'm really in my bedroom, so I totally understand.
All right, well, Nick, thank you for joining us, buddy.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us. You are fantastic, and I love talking to you.
Nice meeting you, Nick.
And I love giving you shit, and I love when you talk shit about Last of Us to Brandon, even though it's one of my favorite games of all time. So, Nick, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you for having me, and I'm actually replaying The Last of Us this week because I've got 9 days off before I start my next job, so I'm going to make sure I play through The Last of Us and Oxenfree just to bug Dan and Brandon.
The difference is more people don't like Oxenfree.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, okay. But thanks for having me, guys. It was great.
Yeah, brother.
Later, man.
Bye.
See you, Nick.
Real quick side question. What was your favorite suit in the game? And then we'll wrap it up. I just want to know. What suit did you play with the most?
So I loved the main suit. So a lot of people were like, "Ooh, the big white spider. It looks so stupid. Why does it have a big white?" I thought it was perfect. The way it's like they designed it to look good in a 4K video game. Flipping around through the city, you still see that big white spider, and it's really great. So I might say that suit. The negative suit was also really fun to play as.
Yes.
And the one you get from Black Cat is cool too, but I wanted the black suit Spidey, and that wasn't quite it.
I think when it was all said and done, I played a lot with the suit that makes no sense to me, and you explained it to me. It still makes no sense to me. Was the Ghost Rider-esque suit? Yeah. It was a very odd suit, but it was just badass looking. But I think I actually really like the black and yellow suit that he puts on at the end. The comic style Spider-Man was just gorgeous, and I was playing with that a lot. But when I knew I was getting into the final missions, I was like, no, I can't go into these probably very serious cutscenes in this goofy ass costume. But I put back.
Peter obviously wouldn't be in the last one, but like he's coming up to Aunt May and it's like fucking Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Exactly. So I went back to the Insomniac suit. So yeah, it'd be great if he's sitting by Aunt May's bed and his head's on fire. But yeah, so I think the black and yellow ended up being my favorite. What about you, Daniel?
I played with mostly, I think, the Stark suit and the Iron Spider-Man suit. Yeah, kind of like almost like a throw to the MCU stuff, the movies. If it wasn't those two, it was just the classic. I'm kind of like the plain old school stuff. I didn't really care for a lot of them. There were a few of them that were pretty cool.
There were a lot that seemed to be left out in favor of some ones that were kind of less cool, but it's still Spider-Man, and unlocking every single one was fun.
Yeah, the black suit is, I think, a huge missed opportunity on that front. That was definitely one of my favorites. It seemed like a really simple one, too, to just...
It'll be back.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
It'll be there.
It's happening.
You just don't want it to be like a tacked-on thing. I think more people would be upset about that.
Yeah, I'd much rather get it because there's a serious story scene with it than because I hit level 33.
Yeah, true.
Agreed.
True. Right.
Very true.
Brian, favorite suit?
So my favorite Spidey suit of all time is the Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider.
Okay.
So that was in the game made me so happy. I did not take it off once while playing. I love the advanced suit. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Also, the big time Spider-Man suit is one of my favorites. The stealth suit with the green, it almost looks like it's from Tron Legacy or something.
Right.
But Scarlet Spider, the entire game. I love that suit so much.
So I love the Scarlet Spider suit, and in action, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
but
it's the bestest look.
But my nerd brain won't let me do it. Like my brain just goes, "That's not Peter Parker." So I couldn't do it.
Alex, what's your favorite suit?
Just because I didn't want to disrupt the cutscenes, I went advanced suit almost the entire way. There was a spot where I did Iron Spider, and I'm like, "This is wrong. I'm wrong, and some fuck this up. I have to delete my save." But there was once I got to the actual side mission stuff where I knew I wasn't going to be getting into cutscenes. Each district, I tried a different suit. So I fucked around with the 2099 suit, the Noir suit. In terms of favorites, I did Iron Spider and Stark, probably third and fourth most, and then the cartoony cell shaded one behind the advanced suit in terms of most used. Partially, I just wanted to cycle through all of them because I was curious if they weighed different when you swung. That was something I tested where I was like, these suits way different, and I think the answer is no. And I was like, oh, that would have been such a nice touch.
I think the suit I used least was the Noir suit. I put it on for a little bit. I'm like, I just don't like how this looks.
He has a freaking gun strapped to his hip. It's like, are you kidding? Spider-Man. The cool thing about the suits, they mentioned it, they don't weigh differently when swinging, but if you wear the Iron Spider suit at night, it rusts. You see rust on the metallic,
that's
it's like rusting in the rain. For me, I mean, when I saw it first in 2016, I know some people were dividing, what the hell is with this white Spider? I was blown away. It's everything I've ever wanted in a Spider-Man costume. I just love how it blends realism with the fantasy of the comics and just how big the logos are. And I can't stand their small Spider-Man logos. I love how huge and how vibrant the white spider is. That's why I love the advanced suit right when they show it, and I wear it every single chance I can. But for an alternate suit, I would say either Spider-Punk or probably the all-new, all-different one where it's the black logo, but it's kind of glow in the dark and the green eyes. And it's red and blue, and it's kind of metallic in the same way. I love those, and I love the powers that come with them, like the guitar and then the shielding of the all-new, all-different. I think it's amazing. But advanced is my go-to.
Take the Noir suit with the Iron Spider suit power, so it's just this black leather, this leather daddy suit with these arms coming out of it.
It's something out of Strangeland all of a sudden.
Right.
Favorite suit powers, really, really quick, would be the only ones I used was Web Bukkake and occasionally Bulletproof. I would use Bulletproof when I was going into a lot of some of the hideouts and shit like that, but. I used Web Bukkake for the longest time. Then I got rid of it, and then I'm like, nope, that is definitely the best suit because you could land on a building and hit nobody and be done if you stuck them all to the wall and shit. So that was my favorite power.
Mine too, just because for the same reason, especially doing cleanup at the end of the game, where
this is getting weird.
Where you just had to get a bunch of battles out of the way quick. And I would drop in, I'd do the stomp,
just shoot it all,
and then I'd shoot it everywhere. And a lot of times, unless you were fighting the Sable agents, the fight would be over in 30 seconds.
Especially the rooftop ones, because there's just 8 of them. You're like, goodbye.
Yeah.
As I was landing, I would pull the tower down, stomp, and then do that, and done. So
later.
I did the Web Blossom a bunch, towards the end, where I'm like, I need to get. Where I was like, I have 23 crimes left. Fuck me. Web Blossom, everything. But throughout most of the game, I used the focus build one because being able to chain that with the skill that lets you do the finisher right after you do a finisher. And if you do just a bunch of aerial moves, you could start chaining together 6 or 8 finishers in a row because the focus bar is filling up. And so I'm like, well, I am an unbeatable human. This is great. So I would try to stack the skills together with the suits to make the combat easier because I'm terrible at video games, and B just enough to be like, all right, how do I just come in and just smoke these bitches?
That's the way. Nicely done.
Nice.
Epically finished.
Brian, favorite suit power?
Web Blossom. I mentioned it earlier. I got the entire game. It was incredibly overpowered.
Yeah.
Best way possible.
Did anybody use quips?
No.
No.
What did it do? I tried it once and I couldn't figure out what the fuck it was doing.
Thing. It's so funny. It's two things. One, it adds additional dialogue from Yuri Lowenthal every time you press it together, and it recharges really fast, so you keep spamming it over and over again. But even when you do it, there's like a little a force push, so like enemies will kind of like back away whenever you make a joke. They're like, "Oh my god, he's so funny," but he's like,
Wow.
There's like one, I don't know. There's like one. I'm probably like interpreting it, but he says like, "Oh, am I the only one who feels awkward not wearing orange jumpsuits when you're fighting the prisoners? Like, I feel weird not being the guy in orange." It's like really funny.
Huh. Yeah, I tried it once. I'm like, I don't know what that just did. Back to the Webukaki. So.
Dan.
Yeah, I used the Webukaki for the most part, and then also
calling it the right name.
Yeah, right. It's pronounced Bukake.
Oh, damn it!
Anyway,
they're gonna change the name of the patch.
And then I use the iron arms. Actually, I use that quite a bit at the beginning because as soon as you hit, I mean, you wouldn't have to do all the special things like with the bigger guys. You wouldn't have to web them up to, beat the crap out of them. You just run around and just smack the shit out of them with these arms, and it was over really, really quick. But for them, after a while, the enemies got a little bit tougher, especially with the Sable agents. So I just went back to the web stuff, even though sometimes I didn't work on them.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Like Brian said, it's super overpowered, but it was fun.
Yeah, all right. I think we're about done here. It's 1,000,000 o'clock, and my body's falling.
My wife is staring daggers into my back right now. She wants the computer, so.
He's web bukaking your face.
That's right. Good.
True love.
We have to edit that out.
Yeah, on the live show.
Shit.
Alex, who are you? Say goodbye. Do cool stuff.
Okay, well, I'm Alex Derrickson. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's twitter.com/pressx2alex. But if you want to know what I do on the internet as a whole, you can find me every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on youtube.com/pressx2alex and your podcast service of choice, except SoundCloud, because I don't make that SoundCloud money. With the PlayStation Forecast, it's a weekly deep dive PlayStation news show with context and things like that. So I take you through the news and then kind of talk about like what I think that means, how I think that portends in the future and things like that. This has been awesome. I've been dying to like get to know you guys and talk to you guys because we all started kind of just like broing out on Twitter after I started the show. So this has been really cool. But yeah, twitter.com/pressx2alex and then like, subscribe, and share that podcast, please.
Spoiler alert, his show's fucking awesome. So
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Really good. That's the spoiler cast for
the PlayStation Forecast. Yeah.
Evan.
Yes, sir.
Real quick.
4 seconds. Go.
We talked to you for 100 hours in the last week. Who are you? Yep. Say goodbye.
Well, first of all, I'm honored that you guys would even have me on the show. It's just so much fun just to talk about the game with all you guys. I just love being able to interact with you all the time. Me, Evan Falarka, YouTube and Twitter, that's my handle. I just talk about everything related to the Spider-Man PS4, and if you look hard enough, the Spidey Squad, the group that I'm able to be lucky enough to be a part of and I've been able to create, is in Spider-Man PS4, and I'm so honored that Insomniac Marvel would actually include us in the game. But if you want to learn anything about Spider-Man, whether that's the game or anything other related to Spider-Man at all, just go follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll keep you up to date. You'll have fun.
Now start working towards Squads of Tsushima.
Yes.
Tsushima Squad. I'm ready.
Tsushima.
Yeah. How do you? I don't. Tsushima Squad. Tsushima Squad. That's too, I can't
Squad
do it.
Shima.
I can't do it. Squads of Tsushima works far better. Dan, who are you? Where can people find you? Quickly, because everybody knows.
Yeah, you can find me right here on Digital Hoarders, also on Season Gaming, Vidcast every 2 weeks, and on Twitter at D Rodriguez. WD.
Fuck Fire Escapes.
And not the Fire fucking Escapes.
You're not going to throw out the whole like happy you guys have me.
That's what I said.
Whoa!
Wow.
Look for mine and Dan's new podcast, Curmudgeon Pod, where we're just going to bitch about everything.
And that was the last. Everyone's.
God, I love Aunt May, you heartless bastards.
Gosh, I don't know what
Brian, my fellow guy that gets choked up at sad things in games.
Yeah, okay.
These monsters.
Just real quick, I'm going to make this real brief as possible. To argue with Dan
Oh no! I did it again.
All the guys that are like, I didn't feel anything for Aunt May. Like, you did you not
Soulless.
the whole like. It was basically the end of Martin Lee's arc with her death. I mean, if you saw that note on his desk where he's like, "This is all like this is all you, like without you. I've been doing this with you, and you kind of made it your thing." And then he started the whole like, fight for the devil's breath, and like, if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't like have happened. She wouldn't have died if he didn't start off. This was all his thing. Like, she ended that arc. Like, that's what made the emotional impact so heavy. Anyways, I guess
Dan.
It doesn't fail. When next time you come on, I'll probably insult you some other way. So we'll see what happens.
So I'm Brian Marquez. I go by One Armed Wonder 7, all one word on everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I make video games for a living. I work at games. I'm on the production team. I've done things like Battle Chef Brigade, Pocket Morty, Rise and Shine. That's Gambit recently came out.
Oh, yes. Sorry. That game looks awesome.
I
just web cocky everywhere.
For a living. I love video games. I'm also a freelance artist, and you can find me on all those things. So, yeah, thank you guys for having me on here again. I love hanging out with you guys. And
thank you for helping make Battle Chef Brigade.
Yes.
That was the one game I had the most influence on. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I fucking love that game.
Grant, who are you? Where can people find you?
I'm me, and I'm on this chair. Yep.
I'm me, and I'm on this chair.
Yeah, and we're both on Digital Hoarders. And
#DadPod.
Yeah. Please listen to #DadPod.
Yeah.
Everybody, because we get most of these people, they know about our gaming stuff, but #DadPod, I don't know if any of you guys, I know Dan's listened to it, but #DadPod is just a,
No, thank you.
Who said that?
I said the best.
Oh, well, thank you.
What?
You're not even old enough to listen to it. It's just a insane. I know. It's just a lot of fun. There is nothing we won't discuss. We started it as a show that was going to be all about gaming as a dad, and then it just turned into it's just everything. So please check us out on there as well.
Yeah, I'd like to have more than 7 downloads.
Yeah, please. And we're gonna get Alex to just be like our voiceover for it. And yeah, Alex, are you a dad?
I am.
Fucking A right. Welcome. #DadPod.
Welcome. Do our show for
us.
Yeah, just all you guys are fantastic, and I love that we got to have a conversation with some of my favorite people to talk to on Twitter and my favorite people to talk to on podcasts. Like, the whole group is just
Dan.
Great group. And Spider Dan.
#Spider Orgy.
#Spider Orgy.
Nice.
Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to those of you who sat through how many hours in are we?
Long.
Two.
I need to use the bathroom. That's something.
This is the quarter mark of a broadcast. So we're gonna sign off now, though.
Game on, bro.
Game on, bro.
What?
Yeah, my wife's over here talking shit.
Yeah, she's
babe.
YouTube commenting while we're doing the show.
Are you in the show? Are you commenting, babe?
She's just thumbs down. She's got she's got 14 phones. She's just thumbs down.
Now we're not going to end the show until you come over and say goodbye to everybody.
We're ending the show because my back is falling off my body.
What?
Why are you looking?
Gotta get those stock arms.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. This has been fantastic. You guys are all fantastic. We're all fantastic together. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh yeah, hold on. We didn't do that last time.
No.
Game on, bro.